everyone, we're Gabby,
Karim,
and Jules.
And you're listening to the Making of an Incredible MD podcast by Allied to Health.
Last season we took you behind the scenes of some of our mock MMI stations.
So we've talked about the GAMSAT and we've talked about the interviews. So now on to the next step. This season we're talking all things getting ready for med school.
We will be running you through what a day in the life of a medical student looks like, what study techniques to know about, what your career is going to look like, and much more.
So stay tuned and get ready to get med ready.
Hey everyone, it's Gabby here, just popping in very briefly at the beginning of this episode to let you know about a cool new initiative Allied are starting. It's a newsletter that gets sent to your inbox every week called Upcoming in the Med Space. It is jam-packed full of tips and resources to help support you on your med journey. It has a whole section for opportunities like volunteering and paid jobs in the health space, as well as recommendations on free resources and events to help you upskill before and even during med school. It is a really cool resource that I highly recommend checking out. So click on the link in the show notes to sign up and let us know what you think. But for now, sit back and enjoy the... Hey everyone, welcome back to our podcast. On today's episode, we're talking all about how to be sure that medicine is the best career for you. So I'll start us off with an acknowledgement of country. So I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we all are today, wherever you're listening from. For us, we're recording on the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations. I would like to pay my respect to their elders past, present and emerging, and pay that forward to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander listeners that may be listening today. So today, talking all about if medicine is the best career for you. What's a misconception about this, Karim?
Well, I think probably the biggest misconception is that people who haven't started med school, so pre-med students or students during whatever, tend to think that once they're in med, it's all going to be sunshine and rainbows. And I think that's definitely not the case. It kind of brings us back to that imposter syndrome, sort of feeling like, is this actually what I was expecting it to be? A bit of a throwback to episode 1. So if you haven't watched that, go ahead and go back and rewatch it. Or watch it for the first time. But yeah, don't sort of expect that once you're in med school, it's going to be absolutely perfect, because it's not. It's got its ups and downs, just like anything that you decide to do in life. Gabby, what about you? Is there anything you want to add in terms of misconceptions?
Yes, so I think one of the biggest things that undergrad students sort of think going into medicine is once you're in, that's it. The hard task of GAMSAT interviews and everything is over. And although that is a really tricky process, med is the start of the journey, not the end, unfortunately. You pick up that momentum from trying to get in from undergrad in med itself. And it doesn't just stop there. You've got a long process of internship afterwards, residency, whatever happens next after that. You have a long process ahead of you. So keep that in mind without wanting to put too much of a downer on it. It is only the beginning. Mm-hmm. Mm.
Yeah, and I think everyone's experience is a little bit different, but, in terms of my experience for getting into med and trying to figure out if it's the best career for me, I'm not going to lie, I think my parents had a really big part of me getting into med school. I think from a young age, there was definitely some sense of pressure about pushing me towards a career in medicine. And I definitely resisted a lot of that pressure growing up. I actually wanted to do a lot of other things aside from medicine. Once I got into uni, I had a little bit of exposure to physiology and anatomy, and I sort of fell in love with it. And it was at that point where I started considering, do I really want to pursue a career in medicine? Maybe it's something that I'd really enjoy. But at the same time, I was also doing a lot of study in mathematics, and I was very interested in finance. So I thought maybe that could be a potential career path. But eventually I decided that I really do love biology, and I love medicine. And I decided it'd be worth my time to try and pursue a career in medicine. I was currently, at the time when I was thinking about all this, I was studying biomed. And having that exposure to biomed made me sort of fall in love with all the physiology and anatomy and a lot of the stuff that you learn in med. So I think from that point, I kind of wanted to pursue trying to get into med school. I was lucky enough to get in, and I'm very glad I did, because I've absolutely loved the first year of medicine, and I definitely has sort of affirmed in my mind that it's a correct career decision, if not the ideal career decision for me. I'm yet to see obviously what it's actually like, because I haven't worked as a doctor yet. But right now I love what I'm doing and I want to continue pursuing it. And I think that's a big theme of today's episode, is to constantly reflect on what you're doing and see if it is right for you. Yeah, I'll pass on to Jules. How did you find your medical experience so far?
So I mean, I'm sort of in the same boat as Karim, where I just have really loved it so far, and I think I'm still very much convinced that it's the right path for me, but I definitely have had some doubts throughout this first year. I think for me, it's also because I decided a little bit later that I was interested in med. So, I did a double degree in my undergrad, and so I did a slightly longer degree, and then I took a little bit of time off. So when I started med last year, I was 23, just about to turn 24. And I guess it kind of just hit me that, a lot of my friends from undergrad or friends of the same age were sort of working full time. They were starting to, earn big full-time incomes, and they were, starting their careers and all of that. And I sort of went through a phase where I was worried that maybe it was the wrong decision for me to start this whole new course. I wasn't going to graduate until I was 27. It's like, what am I doing? Like, this is a mistake. But then, I guess after I sort of thought about it a little bit more, I just kind of realized everyone's on their own path. And, as we said earlier, it definitely is kind of a long journey. And med school is only the beginning of that journey. But at the same time, like, you kind of just have to do what you enjoy. And that's what I kind of came down to. I was like, at the end of the day, like, I'm happy where I am. So that's all that matters. But yeah, what about you, Gabby?
Yeah, so pretty similar, I guess. My parents sort of always thought that it was best to get a job and earn money straight away, which I did agree with. After being a poor uni student for a couple of years, I was like, yeah, this ain't the best. But it's after reflecting on what I enjoyed most about my undergrad degree, it was all of the things that sort of linked to medicine, like physiology and pathology as well. But also I craved that people and patient interaction. So I knew that just doing like research or something like that maybe wasn't the best, and that medicine was something that I would enjoy. And then I did some sort of work experience. I volunteered at the Royal Women's Hospital, and I really, really enjoyed it, especially in the emergency department. All of the patient interactions that I had there really sort of reaffirmed it for me that medicine was the right choice. But then also not having any family members that, or close friends really, that were doctors or in the medical field, I found it hard to sort of relate to medicine in that way. And it is a thing that still comes up, I think, now as well, like whether or not I will actually be good at it. Am I going to be able to last the next 3 years or not? I often think about that. And the hard work involved as well. It's a fear of mine to sort of get to the end of this and then realize it's not what I do want. But in saying that, a couple of my tutors this year at uni have actually changed career paths once they've established a career. So 2 of my tutors were lawyers. So they completed law school, became official lawyers, and then went back to med school. So it's not unheard of to change your career even after you've done a long university degree to go through it. So I think from seeing those experiences, it has sort of reassured me a little bit that if I do get to the end, it's not the end of the world. I can just do something else. But at this stage, with the little placement opportunities we have had, I think that it is the career for me, because I just really enjoy having that one-on-one patient interaction, but I also love the theoretical content behind what we do as well. So I think a marriage of those 2 things is really what affirms my want to be a doctor.
Yeah, and I think in terms of, those are our personal experiences, but when you yourself are reflecting on, is medicine the right or the best career for you? self-reflection is going to play a big part of that. I think that's something we all do constantly. It's something that's even encouraged in med school. They tend to encourage it more in terms of study, but I think it could definitely apply in terms of your career as well. Always reflect on, is this what's right for you? Are you happy? Are you enjoying what you're doing? Is it challenging you as well? Is it something that you find stimulating, something that you could imagine yourself doing every day? And like Gabby said, don't be afraid of career change. I think a lot of people that are in med school have had a previous career. There's a really broad scope of what kind of careers people have had before getting into med school.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any other practical tips?
Just note as well that just because you study medicine doesn't mean you have to, be a practicing physician. There's lots of things you can do. For example, our tutors, they're all educators. There's also, research work that you can do as well. Government jobs. You could be the World Health Organization officer. I don't know.
They're very busy at the moment.
Very busy. There's lots of jobs in it, I think. So there's lots to do and lots that we probably don't even know about, and jobs that probably don't exist at the moment but will exist later on once we are more established in our career. So keep that in mind as well, that it is a very dynamic career, I think. You're not just sort of signing up to be, a GP, for example, and you're a GP for the next 30 years. It's a very dynamic career with lots of opportunities, as far as I know.
And also, even in saying that, if you decide to become a GP and then you realise, hey, I want something a bit different, there are plenty of people in medicine that pick a specialty and then go back and relearn new or different specialties as well. Medicine is a really great career path in that way, in that once you're out of med school, there's literally an infinite number of choices you can make in terms of what career path you're going to have. And no two doctors have the same career path. Everyone's looks different. People have very different sort of career trajectories. So remember you're on your own journey, and reflect on that journey as you're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think also, it's important to just kind of, keep things in perspective a little bit in terms of, you're not going to necessarily, love every moment of med school. Just with a lot of professions, I think the way that the study is quite different to what the actual job is. So, if you're finding that you're not enjoying being in lectures, I don't know, 10 hours a week or something, don't necessarily think that means that you're going to hate all of medicine, because I hope that is not what it's going to be like for the rest of it. So I think just definitely, you want to keep sort of reflecting and evaluating it, but you want to be reflecting and evaluating on the right kind of things. For example, are you enjoying placement? That kind of stuff. But with that said, if you are having lots of doubts and you're really just not sure, you get a few months into the course and you're like, oh, I really don't know if this is for me, there's options there to just, obviously there's options to change your mind altogether, but you can also sort of most unis will let you take a year off or defer, take some time to think about it. So I think it's really important not to feel like you're completely locked in, because that can be really stressful when you start to feel like you're not enjoying it. And just remember that, if it's not for you, it's not for you. But also it can look very different. So just because you're not enjoying one aspect of it doesn't mean you'll hate all of it.
Yeah, exactly. And even in topics in medicine as well, first year you go through a lot of topics. And if there's some topics that you just hate, for example, I really don't like histology. I don't find it enjoyable to look at cells. And you know what? That's fine. I probably am never going to, be a histologist. That's fine. And be really kind to yourself in that regard as well. If you find one topic really harder than another topic or another block, then it's fine. It doesn't necessarily mean you won't specialize in that career. But it's such a broad career path and such a broad field that there's going to be things that you love and there's going to be things that you hate. So just chill out about it.
And I feel like when you've put in so much work and so much effort to get into something, sometimes it can feel a little bit demoralizing if it's not exactly what you thought it was going to be. And I feel like sometimes when we look forward, well, at least my experience, I looked forward to being in med for a long time. And then when I got there, I was like, oh, it wasn't necessarily different to what I expected, but there were definitely parts of it that were harder. It started to feel more overwhelming, more grueling, and like the journey ahead seemed like a lot worse. And I think that's okay. Like, I think most people will experience that. You're probably not alone. So, yeah.
And just, finishing on a sort of brighter note, I think the one thing we've always heard from our peers and from people who have been practicing doctors as well is that you're in an incredibly privileged career. I can't imagine any other career where you get to have such an impact on people.
Yeah.
And I think we're all extremely privileged and lucky to be in this career path. So just as an overall note to the episode, although we've talked about constantly reflecting on your journey, it's also important to keep things in perspective, because we are very, very lucky to be in the position that we are in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we would all agree with that.
Yeah, for sure.
Be grateful for it and pat yourself on the back for getting here, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, with that said, we might finish the episode off here. So stay tuned. Keep an eye out on whatever podcasting platform you're listening to for our next episode that'll come out next week. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Making of an Incredible MD podcast by Halad to Health. Please like, share, and subscribe to help spread the word about our podcast. And we'd love to hear your feedback. So send us an email or message on Facebook. All of our links are in the show notes. Thanks. We'll see you next time.